We'll call the meeting to order.
Sorry.
This is the regular meeting of the Ojai Planning Commission for Wednesday, April 2nd, 2014. Members of the public, should there be any, wishing to address the Planning Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker's card and file it with the secretary prior to the start of the meeting. Cards are available in the lobby. Speakers should state their name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Comments must be directed to the commission, not the audience. While the Planning Commission is in session, all in attendance are expected to maintain order and decorum and to obey the orders of the chair. Commissioner Foster, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Zabilla?
Here.
Commissioner Jagiello?
Here.
Nicklin?
Here.
Foster?
Here.
Chair Merck?
Yes.
Nolan?
Yes, here.
Public communications is time set aside during the Planning Commission meeting for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items of city business other than scheduled agenda items. Matters raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the Commission and will generally be referred to staff and/or placed on a subsequent agenda. Under state law, other than for emergency items, no action can be taken at this meeting. You may.
Well, I guess I don't have a green card, but I'm going to speak. I have a question. I'm wondering if a procedure could be developed maybe between staff and city council to, if any issues come up with any of the commissions where we'd be contacted ahead of time. I'm just mentioning this in lieu of what happened the last couple of weeks. I felt like it wasn't handled properly. There wasn't a procedure for any preliminary discussion to find out, what was going on or to inform anyone. And I think it just might be a good method, a good form of communication, and it could be used for all the commissions. I'm not sure exactly what that would be, if our council liaison would be reporting to us, or if it would go through staff and we'd have a separate meeting. I guess that would have to be discussed further. But I would be interested in seeing something like that happen.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other members of the public here, so we're going to move on to the consent items. The consent calendar is approved by a roll call vote in one motion. Should any member of the commission wish to discuss or disapprove an item, it must be removed from the consent calendar and considered as a separate item. And we have two consent items: the amended minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning Commission meeting March 5th and minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning Commission March 19th. And could we have a motion on these? All right.
I'll second.
We have a roll call, please.
Zabilla?
Yes.
Jagiello?
Yes.
Nicklin?
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Chair Merck?
Yes.
Nolan?
Yes.
Next item is our Municipal Advisory Council Planning Commission Liaison Report. I don't see our MAC representative here. The next MAC meeting is April 21st, and I will plan to attend that. And that brings us to our public hearing items. The first one is item 3, a text amendment to the Ojai Municipal Code amending section 10-2404.
We missed the 1 minutes, March 19th.
Oh, I thought we were doing both of those in one item.
Did we do, because I need to abstain, because I didn't attend the
Oh, now we have to do
second
the
one.
whole thing over again, right? All right. So your motion was just for item 1?
It's for March 5th.
All right. Could
March,
we have a motion
March
for March
19th.
19th?
March 19th, we need to have a motion for that,
All right.
to make it correct.
Would someone like to make a
I'll
motion?
make a motion for the 19th.
All right.
I'll second the motion.
Could we have a roll call on the March 19th meeting?
Zabilla?
Yes.
Jagiello? Nicklin?
Abstain?
Foster?
Yes.
Merck?
Yes.
Nolan?
Yes.
All right. Anyway, I will attend the MAC meeting. And item 3 is a text amendment of the Ojai Municipal Code amending section 10-2.404 and section 10-2.3003 of the city's zoning ordinance regarding residential building heights, TA 13-03, and adding section 10-2.405 establishing a solar access height limitation. So can we hear from staff on this, please?
Thank you, Chairman and members of the commission. Of course, this item has been before you a number of times, so I'm going to be kind of brief and just focus on the changes since you last reviewed it. But in general terms, the ordinance does three things. It lowers the general height limit for residential zones from 30 feet to 25 feet, but allows architectural features and building ridge lines up to 30 feet if you can make certain findings that are more rigorous than the normal findings that you'd make for a design review. Secondly, it makes single-story buildings, which are now not covered by design review, covered by design review if they're in excess of 24 feet in height. And then thirdly, it adopts a solar access provision very similar to that which is in effect in the city of Santa Barbara. And I think some of you were on the commission when we had a representative from the city of Santa Barbara come here and respond to some of your questions. But there are also a few differences between what we're proposing for Ojai and what is currently in place in Santa Barbara. One is that this ordinance exempts single-story residential buildings with a base elevation of 15 feet or less, and that would be most single-family residences. And then a couple other exemptions have been added based on comments that were made at the last meeting. One comment had to do with the possibility of neighborhood plans establishing a different solar access provision for a specific neighborhood. And so we've included language in the recitals indicating our intent to do neighborhood planning, which someone pointed out may be the first time we've ever done that officially, and indicated that either a specific plan or a neighborhood plan could be adopted with a different solar access provision, and that would supersede the one that is in this ordinance. Secondly, there was a question about large lots where there's a lot more flexibility as to where you locate features and possibly less impact on neighboring features. And so we've added a provision that a residential building on a lot exceeding 20,000 square feet, you can, through a CUP process, make an exception if you can make certain findings. One, that the building will not shade that portion of an adjacent residentially zoned lot which is occupied by a dwelling, and two, the characteristics of the adjacent residentially zoned lot or lots to the north are such that solar access for future dwellings is not unreasonably limited. So that, again, was to deal with parts of the city where there's a lot of space and big lots. The other question that came up is addressed in some additional information that we sent out and some new language that we're proposing. And that was a question about, in the Santa Barbara ordinance, they allowed you to shade a covered parking structure. And I was asked to contact Santa Barbara and find out what their thoughts were on that particular provision. And basically their input was that when they crafted that language, they were thinking more about passive solar access and less about solar panels, and that it is possible that solar panels would be placed on uninhabitable portions of buildings such as a garage, and therefore they actually thought maybe this is not appropriate language to include in our ordinance. So in the attached language, I've taken out exemption 5C, which had to do with shadows that fall on parking structures, and added covered parking areas 2B, which indicates that it should not fall on a covered parking area. I also found we had changed the effective date of this to January 1st of 2015, and I corrected a couple dates in this version as well so that they're all consistent. But if this is recommended by the Planning Commission and subsequently adopted by the City Council, we still will need to adopt rules and regulations, probably also modeled after Santa Barbara, to get into the details of how it's administered. And so we need some time to do that. And there may be people from the public who would like to testify. We did contact solar contractors, some of whom had met with us before, to be available to share their thoughts on it.
Good, thank you. Any commissioners have any questions for staff? No. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody that wants to speak on this issue? Come on ahead. Just tell us your name and address, and then
January 1st of 215.
jump right in.
Okay, my name is Gloria Melendez. I live at 118 Puesta del Sol in Oakview. I have a property at 311 South Montgomery Street, and my husband and I would like to, there's a structure on there right now. We would like to, we're looking at taking that structure down and building a new structure. It is zoned village mixed use. I'm not really familiar with what all the discussions have been regarding the height limitations, but I do know that based on some drawings that we've had done to prepare for this building, this new structure, we would not be allowed to build our structure if you set it at 25 feet. Now, I don't know, you said something about residential. I don't know if village mixed use is going to be required to follow the same height limitations. But if village mixed use is going to be restricted, then we would be affected by the height limit. So I guess what I'm asking you is to consider that maybe there are some properties out there, as ours is, that has certain features that kind of require us to build our house in such a way that we would need the extra height. I guess that would be it.
Yeah. So you're going 2 stories with your,
2 stories.
yeah, and it
And-
goes up above 20.
And it is village mixed use, your zoning is BMU on your
Village
property?
mixed use, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I think that's something for staff to address.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman and members of the commission. We did not include village mixed use in the chart that's restricting the heights from 30 to 25 feet. So I'm not sure what the height limit is in village mixed use, but this would not affect a change in it.
Yeah, so it would probably stay as 30 feet, I think, because that's what it has been.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on this? Could we close the public hearing? I need a motion for that.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any staff discussion? Any commission discussion?
Well, I for one, am glad to see the wording in there referring to the neighborhood plan. I think we brought it up so many times, it's really encouraging to see us actually get the wording into our ordinance at this point, even though it's a humble beginning, but I think it's something necessary to pave the way for future discussion, so it's a start.
All right. Any other discussion? Anybody want to make a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion.
All right.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 14-03, thank you. Recommending that the City Council adopt proposed ordinance text amendment TA 13-03, which amends the residential height standards in Title 10, Chapter 2, Article 4, and design review standards for residential buildings in Title 10, Chapter 2, Article 20 of the Ojai Municipal Code, and adding a residential solar access height limitation to Title 10, Chapter 2, Article 4.
And did you want to indicate that the revised
changes-
language that we provided would be included in that motion?
Yes, and I would like to include that the revised language, and I guess that would be the wording for height ordinance item number 3. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I think that includes it, correct? It does, yes. Okay, good.
I'll second the motion.
All right. I just want to interrupt here. Did you want to comment on this height limit thing that we're talking about?
Certainly.
Yeah.
I can. I missed the beginning of it.
Yeah, that's okay. Come on up, and
Sure.
we'd love to get some more input on this. I'm sorry, we kind of jumped right into this. So.
Sure. My name is Jeremy Sullivan. I work for REC Solar. I'm a branch manager in Ventura, and I do Santa Barbara County and Ventura County. So I'd love to comment, whatever you got for me.
Yeah. Well, one of the items we were talking about was whether or not shading a carport would be an issue. And are you seeing people actually installing solar panels on carports and things?
Yeah, so typical to any building, the carport would have to be structurally sound. So you couldn't just put a regular carport up and put solar panels on it, right? It'd have to be something that was already cleared by the building department, something that's up to building code. And yeah, they also make prefabricated carports that they're putting solar panels on. You'll see them. There's companies out there that make them. They're pre-structural engineered. So they come with a stamped set of plans, a little bit easier to permit, but they cost a lot more. Typical wood framing, as long as it's permitted and up to code, there's no problem with putting solar panels on. The fact of the matter is, in Ojai, there's oak trees, so shades everywhere.
Yeah.
I live in Miners Oaks. I have a system on my house, and there's oak trees all around. So not much you can do. You just got to deal with the oaks.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think the way we're changing it so that we won't have any shading of carports by a building on an adjacent lot. So
So explain that to me again. So you're worried about shading, the carport shading an adjacent?
no, if somebody builds something on the lot next door, we
Yeah.
don't want it to shade the carport in an existing house.
Yeah. Well, you have a height restriction on how high you can build a building, right? 32
Yeah.
feet. Is that the?
No, it's actually 20 feet. Sorry,
28.
25 feet.
25. Okay.
Yeah.
25 feet. If it depends. You also have a setback, right? So
Yep.
depending on what part of the county you're in or what part of the city you're in, you're going to have different setbacks. If somebody was to put a 25-foot building next to a carport that's on the property line, yeah, there might be some shading issues. But typically speaking, as long as it's far enough back from the setback. So if you have a 10-foot setback and your nearest house is 10 feet, that's 20 feet over the distance, and then you have the panels up in the air, you're not going to have as much shade. So, but all those things can be taken into consideration. Pre-construction, obviously, if you don't know if someone's going to build something nearby, you don't know. But in the same sense, you can obviously be ready for it, just like a tree is going to grow. A ton of my clients put panels on their house and they say, this is the shade now, but in 20 years, if you're not going to cut the trees down, or if you're not going to at least trim the trees, they're going to be shaded. So you have to keep that in consideration.
Yeah.
These systems last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, remember. So if somebody's putting panels on their home, it's there for a long time.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Hope that didn't change anybody's vote. Are we ready to vote? All right. Could we have a roll call, please, on this?
Commissioner Zabilla?
Yes.
Commissioner Jagiello?
Yes.
Commissioner Nicklin?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster? Chair Merk?
Yes.
Commissioner Nolan?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your input on that. Item 4 is our director report and director actions.
Yeah, that's
Cute,
me.
cute, yeah.
Good evening. Well, you can see we had a little bit more activities. We had 6 projects that were approved. Most of them were signs, and a lot of them were pennants that are going up on the arcade. And I'm open for any questions you might have on any of those. And seeing none, do you want me to move to the code enforcement activity log?
We could certainly do that.
And we're actively moving through code enforcement cases, and we intend to keep you updated on this as to the extent that we are allowed to, and still maintain some kind of confidentiality on the code enforcement cases. And so with that said, I think that we might be putting a little bit more detail in this summary section. You might see that in the future, where we're kind of like telling you the status of the case and whether we're closing it or not. So, whether we might actually show whether the case is being closed one time before then we take it off. So we're just trying to give you a little bit more information on the status or where it is, or just a little bit more information on the code issue. And then lastly, I can do, is there one more here? For the upcoming Planning Commission meetings for April 16th, we have the comprehensive sign program for 206 North Single Street. And coming in May, we have the landscape ordinance regulations that would accompany what we just recently did.
Is it okay if I make a comment at
Yes.
this point? Oh, part of that was we were going to form a subcommittee to work on that. And originally I was going to be doing that with Commissioner Crabtree, and he's no longer here. So I did speak with Commissioner Nicklin, and we're going to work on it, but I'm wondering if well, I think we need more time, it's basically.
So that's doable. So this afternoon, I got an email from Mr. Fletcher and some of the beginnings of what he's been working on that I'm
Okay.
going to be forwarding to you.
Okay.
So, but, I assume that moving it off is fine. I mean, it's,
Yeah, I think we had discussed at our pre-meeting something about having it go through, but we were able to actually do those appendices at a later date. Was that
Yes.
correct?
So the ordinance would go ahead and go to the city council, and then there was a recommendation that a subcommittee be formed. But we decided that Mr. Fletcher's going to go ahead and work on the draft
Okay.
and circulate it informally since the subcommittee wasn't formed,
Okay,
and that'll be a follow-on step.
okay, good, thanks.
Great. Thank you, Kathleen. That brings us to Planning Commission Subcommittee reports.
Couple of notes. So we're basically on the Complete Streets Subcommittee. We're, all the committees were allowed to have 3 commissioners, and we lost Commissioner Crabtree on the Complete Streets. And Lawrence, you're still good to stay on the Complete Streets? So we actually have an opening if anyone would like to join us. It's actually a really good, active, fun group, making a lot of progress. But we meet the first Wednesday of the month from 2:30 to 4:30 here at City Hall. So we met today. So if anyone's interested, or if you'd like more information about what it is and what we're doing, please let me know. And then of course, I just mentioned on the landscape standards that Lawrence and I, or Commissioner Nicklin and I, will be working on that. And basically what we're doing is we're just updating the firescape plant list, the invasive species plant list. There's some tree information. There's a reference sheet. And there might be a couple other lists. I didn't bring it with me, but that's generally what we're going to be doing. So, and I think that's it.
Great. Thank you. Our City Council liaison. It says Mayor Strobel here. That's such a thrill.
I'm glad to see Gloria and Oscar here. Gloria worked for the city for many years. And have you met Kathleen? Yes. Okay. Just make sure you guys are talking there. Okay, you have a vacancy on the Planning Commission. And you were mentioning, Kathleen was mentioning the confusion over the last couple of weeks. So here's where we are on interviewing for the vacancy on the Planning Commission. After I thought about it, I realized that since our subcommittee, our interview subcommittee, rotated over time, no one, except for myself, because I was Mayor Pro Tem last year, and so I did all the interviews with the mayor and etc. No one had interviewed all of the applicants except for myself. So what we're going to do now is we're going to re-interview. The John Merck will be on the interview panel, and Betsy Clapp would be up next, but I understand she's going to be out of town, and so that's going to drop it to Mayor Pro Tem Carol Smith. I just interviewed with Severo Laura. I just interviewed with Paul Blatz, so that Betsy's going to be out of town. That means Carol Smith will be on there. It won't be this week. We'll start trying to schedule it next week. But what we need to do is have all applicants interviewed before the same panel on the same day. Because otherwise we get into the rotation and it just gets chaotic. I've forgotten which commission it was. The Historic Preservation Commission also commented at their meeting, I'm not sure why I was at their meeting, but I was, about oh, I know where I talked to him. It was for interviews. But they also want to be kept apprised of what's going on with the other commissions so that they can see if anything impacts them. And so it looks like, and I'll be coming in to talk with Rob Monday, it looks like what we need to do is make sure that we send emails from every commission to every commission, and the council also. That's the only way I can think of to keep everyone apprised of what's going on. Because until it's on the agenda, we, as commissioners and as council, we really don't know the status of staff's work product. It's until it comes before us, we really don't have any involvement. And so that agenda is our alert. Does that make sense? So I'll get with Rob Monday, see if we can put something like that together. I don't know if the Planning Commission receives the council agendas currently. Do you?
I do. I don't know if anybody else.
Yes, city council agendas.
Okay, so some of you do and some of you don't. So let's make sure that, I think we're going to have to make sure that all the commissions receive the council's agenda and everyone receives the individual commission agendas, including the council. That's the best way I can think of to keep everyone aware of what's going on at any point in time. Because until it gets to the agenda, it's really not something that's going to be discussed to take an action on. That's it for me. Any questions?
Any questions for our mayor?
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Strovo. We're about to adjourn. Mr. York, did you want to speak at all? Appreciate you coming. All right. I know. Well, that's the end of our meeting. Thank you.